I was teaching my class, and I had somebody doing the punches at the front, and I joined in with the line. And getting that different perspective, rather than looking at them from the front, I could see that like several people really kind of exaggerating this wrist movement, you know, and that's kind of what I want to look at with this, just to share this and check this with you. Again, it's kind of like the curse of the eyes. When we have the hands in line with your sight, it's very easy to focus on this, and then these become like really tiny little moves, and the elbows are not really doing anything. So that's why we need to think of this. It's an odd thing that we say in Wing Chun that we're focused on straight lines because that's the shortest distance between 2 points. But we do have this kind of cyclical element to it. You know, it does have a circular flow to it. In as far as like Chi Sao is rolling when we use the knives. It's more kind of as a case of well, let's see it represented. But there's only like second section, start of second section, where we see the views, where we drive forward with the knives. Everything else in the form is kind of sweeping through. It's like a hacking version. When we roll with the elbows, we're driving through. So nothing, the idea being that nothing when we do the knife form, nothing is committed. We never, because the idea with the knives is that we want to have kind of a slashing action as we're driving through, even that kind of tapered end on the end of the knife. When we hit, it has that kind of slashing element to it. Because if we kind of, the principle being that if you were to put the knife in, you've then got to get the knife out, you know, a little bit like same kind of reason why they put bayonets on the end of a rifle. You know, you'd stick the bayonet in and then shoot it out. So it's like the first one kills you and the second kills you even worse. I don't know, horrible idea. But that's, so as I say, in second section, because then straight away you think, well, what about the views in second section? So I think that's more of it being a representation. So we kind of have this, and the punches is a great example of the elbow being the straight line, forwards and backs, forwards and back. But the shape that we see on the end kind of looks almost like circular, like we've got this element going. And that's like the, you know, a steam engine, that kind of piston element, you know, that you see on the outside of the train. So we're seeing that same kind of, to exaggerate it. Often it's the same technique. We were talking about this on Monday's class. It's the same technique, but where you apply your thinking changes the outcome of that technique. You know, it's like Nabarun, you didn't really have to change the punches that much. You know, you knew what to do. You knew the structure and the ABCs of it. But when we gave you a different mindset, thinking of the half bottle of fluid and that sloshing to the front, that then gave you the freedom to experience that same technique in a little bit of a different way. So bearing that in mind, what I want to kind of look at is we'll just do 2 sets of punches, just single punches, really simple. But I want us to kind of, if you can, take away the thought of your punches about the fist and try and think of this as just the elbow as a driving forward thrust. So the elbow is going to drive forwards. It just so happens that we've got a closed hand on the end of it, and that's why it's a fist. That's why it's a punch in action. So I don't want you thinking of a punch and preparing the hand too much or bracing for impact. Lee, you had a question a few weeks ago where you said about, is it okay to keep the hand relaxed? Absolutely, because we're not committed to anything as yet. You know, we haven't applied that punch as yet. But even then, you know, when we're talking in Chi Sao, I'll say while we're rolling the 3 elements. Number 1, think of the elbow position, the point of the elbow, the highest and lowest. If you can do that, everything else will begin to fall in place. If you don't, you will get, and you should expect to get, problems. So number 1 is the elbow point. Number 2 is that if there's any pressure or force or resistance, it comes from the base of your forearm. So that's where we're going to push back from, not here, not with the hand. And point number 3 is to keep the hand relaxed until it's time to not be relaxed, until it's time to use it in the pack or the lap or the punch or palm or whatever we're doing. That principle goes throughout the whole punches. We started doing the punches on Wotek. When I saw yours, initially, you seemed relaxed. And then you started by going and really tucked your elbows in. And it was quite a significant change. It was quite a big action when you did that. So I definitely do not want your elbows out, because that's kind of, it doesn't have any structure, it's floppy and so on. Tan Sao, we know, is a strong shape. We can hit this and it's a strong shape. All we've done with the Tan Sao is kind of got that immovable object, and we've added that unstoppable force to it to try and generate that thrust. So we're going forwards with this shape. But we also need to keep in hand, if it's not comfortable, it's not right. So having the elbows out would be wrong, and it would take effort to get it that wrong. If you relax, the elbows drop. If we then think of pulling our elbows in, we then start to get to something that's not natural. It feels a little bit too much. So allow the elbows to be where they need to be. And we're just going to think with each one of these punches, you're thinking of that elbow, the shape is in its correct position. I'm not going to say, well, it's correct position. If it was out, that would be incorrect. That's not correct at all. Correct doesn't mean it needs to be tucked in. It just needs to be not out. So that's you know, I'm trying to sort of word that carefully. So we've got the elbow position. The driving force is what we're looking at now. That this is what we're going to think of as the push, as the drive. So like a lump of a tube of scaffolding. That's kind of what we're hitting with. So someone getting a pole, bang, and ramming it into you. The force behind that and the direction is what I want you to think of the forearm. So we're thinking of this as a tubular section, pushing forwards. And if you wish, on the end, then you can apply something on the fist. But I want that to be not only the last in the sequence, but the last of your consideration. So, because what tends to happen is we often go too far to the other end of the spectrum, and we see people only thinking about the hands, and there's no connection, and it's not going to have any power like you think it will have. If we now think of changing this and just think of driving that elbow, drive, that's what we're going to go for. So we'll have a couple of sets of these just. Yeah, Wojtek, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say one thing. When I was working on my Wing Chun dummy, I took a saw, right? And I was working, really trying. I've never done this in my life. So I was really focused on holding it very tight, and I was going nowhere. And then suddenly I started using and feeling the impact if I was just focusing on the elbow, and it was incredible how everything sped up. I was just, wow. I mean, that was pure Wing Chun. That's it. That's what I was saying.
That's brilliant. I'm so glad you said that, because I don't know if you managed to see the blog that I put about making things easy, or I can't remember what it was. When I'd been spending last week kind of getting some old crates and pallets, and I'm trying to put them into these kind of vegetable plot covers, if that's what it would be. And I feel exactly the same thing when I'm doing the sawing. If you're kind of thinking too much on the hand, it becomes effort. So what I tend to do is hold the saw fairly relaxed, and I just have that action, and I feel like that's kind of a punch. It's like a punch and a retraction, punch and retraction. And yeah, you see you nodding. It's exactly the same feeling that I have when I'm doing that. It just feels, and you do have that little extra on the end anyway when you're doing the sawing. It's the strangest thing, but it does feel just like that. Yeah, because often you don't need to be kind of told or taught how to saw. You would just kind of, you'd get hold of the saw and you'd get on with it. You'd do it. If I said, right, grab my arm and pull, you would just pull. You don't need to think about it. That's a punch, and that pull is a lap sow. You know, there's a natural element of this. I did some blogs a while ago, and I mentioned the connection between fishing, just because, you know, we talk about water a lot and flowing and be like water, all that kind of thing. But it was just funny. I like the images of these fishermen. They're kind of holding the rod, and they're holding the rod just like a foxhound, you know. And it was and all these shapes that when people are doing something relaxed and natural, it looks so much like Wing Chun. And I see that connection where it's working because it's not really that taxing. It's effortless. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I like that. Yeah, great. So everybody get a saw, start cutting something down. If it's in the street and it's very tall and it's got wires coming off of it, maybe not that one. And we won't be seeing you next week. Right, okay, so punches. So you got one hand forward, doesn't matter which hand, doesn't matter. And as we punch, we're going to think of the backhand driving from the elbow. So don't think about this, don't try to look at this, don't think what it feels like. 1, drive forward. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They looked different. It's really strange. They look different. Wojtek, when you're doing the punch as well, you're kind of trying to stop there. Allow yourself a little bit of freedom. Just allow the thing to go out a little bit. So yeah, so we're just gonna even further, you know, just allow that little bit more extension if you wish. Wait for the count as well, because this is going to connect on something that I'm going to be doing as well in a minute. So again, 1 punch to each count. Think of the back elbow, base of the forearm, I should say, driving forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wojtek, they're brilliant. They were perfect. So nice. This time, guys, it's the same principle. However, this time, I don't want you to think of the elbow going forward. I want you to think of this forearm pulling back. So we're going to think of that retraction. And that retraction is the thing that's going to send the other arm out, this kind of pulley system. Did somebody just mention that Nabaran, was it you about before you had like sometimes catching your hands? Yeah, this kind of forwards and backwards, we tend to find that the elbow pulling back has taken that hand out of danger and cleared the path for this to come forward. So it's the same action. Again, we're just going to change our mental approach to it. Nabaran, we talked before about the sloshing of that water in the bottle. I've just talked about the scaffolding pole going forward. Excuse me. This time, every time we hear the count, I'm going to think of that pulling back as we send the other one forwards. So again, 1 to each count. 1, 2. So we're thinking of that retraction. 3, 4, 5. Think pulling back. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, just relax a sec. What I saw there was a couple of techniques there where it tended to kind of, because we're thinking of pulling back, it's gone bigger, 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 and we started to get big movements. Michael, a little bit on this we need to watch for. It's not gone any further forward. It's not gone any further back. It's the same action. It's just that what are we going to think of while we're doing this? And that's the focus. For instance, so it just popped into my head then. If you were driving your car, then you're probably kind of looking at everything. You might kind of check the temperature occasionally, check the the oil pressure or the fuel tank, that kind of thing. Check your speeds. These are regular things that you might kind of glance down at. But if you had a problem, sorry. Delicious. If you'd had a problem with your car overheating and you knew that perhaps the radiator had a bit of a leak, you would spend more time while you're driving just checking the temperature to see, like, am I still safe, or is that temperature going up? So you'd be driving, you're checking the temperature. It's the same journey, it's the same drive, the same action. I just want you to kind of focus your attention on a different kind of dial at different times, because it'll be something, you don't consider these things. It's not until you realize you've got a slow puncture do you then decide to check your tires every time before you set off, have a little look out and think, yeah, okay, I'm safe. We don't do that. We don't tend to want to go and skim a stone across a pond until such time as you've broken your wrist and you think, oh, I wish I could throw a stone. It's only when you've kind of broken your toe that you wished you could kick a football. If you're fine today, why aren't you going out and doing these things? Because sometimes when we're in balance, that's great. It's what we search for, but we don't push anything. So on occasion, we take the most basic technique, but let's look at it on these different stages. So we looked at going forwards, we're looking at pulling back. What I did see as well, this is exactly, incidentally, second section of Sulam Tao. So when we get to jump at this point, turn. The reason why I'll say for the jut to think of your elbow is because if we just think of that little kind of punch back of the elbow, that really minimizes any chance of you kind of massively overcommitting with the technique. So we get that punch of energy, punch, 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 very short, sharp, explosive techniques. And that's kind of what the second section is about. So we're going to be doing the same action. I'm not going to pull this back any further. I'm just going to think of that retraction, bah, every time. So one more set of punches, and your thought on your leading forearm pulling back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait for the count. I saw that. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, relax again. And also, of course, we'll make sure we're not doing this kind of thing. The reason why we thought of the elbow pulling down is because that's what's clearing for this to go over the top, like so. So always remember that very thin corridor. This is the most basic technique. But sometimes, you know, like I was saying, Chiso, do anything you want as long as you get away with it, as long as it's your choice. Sometimes what we might do is we learn punches really quickly. We get quite good at this, quite competent, and then we rush on ahead and we never visit it again because we think, well, his punches, I know punches. But sometimes, you know, to allow ourselves, it's like, what do we do when we get to a point where we've learned all of the forms? Do we then just stop? It doesn't work like that. You start again. But the information that you've acquired through your training will give such a deeper understanding on the first and second form again. And it just spirals like this, and just time and time again, you get a better and deeper understanding. So, right, set of punches this time, we're going to think of both. So we're thinking of the forearm forwards and the forearm back at the same time. Okay, and remember, tight positions here. So we're not going side by side, and same tiny little punches. So we're not doing that one. 1, forearms. So forearm action forwards and a forearm action back. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, this time keep your hands as relaxed as you can, because these are looking really good. Wait for the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent. Okay, keep that position. We're going to do the punches again, but wait for the count in sequence. I'm going to try and trick you. So we're going to use some of that kind of redirection now. So you're only going to punch when you hear the correct number following in the sequence. 1, 3. Good. 3. Excellent. 2, 3. We're thinking about the elbows. 4, 6, 5, 6, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Guys, that was excellent. All right, a bit faster now. We'll have one more set. I want to see if, while I'm telling you to think about the numbers, you can still be focused on the feeling of your forearms. That's what we're aiming for. So I'm trying to distract you a little bit. 1, 2, 7, 3, 4, 6, 6, 5. I saw both of those, Lee. 7, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 10. Excellent. Pull back. Left leg to right. Cool. Nice one, guys. Yeah. Just to give you an idea, sandbok mount drills, you know, the 3-point stepping.